Just barely made that one. Hey there, how's it going? I'm Gabriel Morris. I'm a travel vlogger. I make videos here on YouTube of my adventures all around the world. I am currently taking a break from my traveling back home in Northern California. I'm here in Mendocino County. The little town of U.S.A. is straight over there. And just to the left here is Lake Mendocino. I'll grab the camera here. Now, you can't really see it, but you will see it in the course of this video. Here it is. There are hiking trails along the lake. And I am right there, going to walk down here, get down to the lake, and then keep on hiking along this way. Attention, mountain lions have been seen in this area. Don't run, crouch, or bend over. Approach a lion. Oh really, you shouldn't approach one, hey? Do hike in a group, so much for that. Keep children close to you, no problems there. Make yourself appear larger by raising your arms, holding up a towel or clothing, or opening up your jacket. My plan is to not see one. It is highly unlikely. In my 40 years of adventuring and camping, hiking, outdoors activities, backpacking in the wilderness, I have never seen a mountain lion in the wild, and so it is highly unlikely. However, just in case, then I have a pocket full of rocks right here to throw at it. And so in this video, then I'm going to be telling one of my old travel stories. Okay, speaking of big wild animals, that is a sign of a large wild animal. So the story is from more than 20 years ago, spring of 1996. I was 24 years old, and I was in a phase of my life at the time in which I was a homeless vagabond, even more homeless than I am now. I don't have a home at the moment, but anyone who follows my channel knows that I'm traveling around the world, staying in hotels and hostels and not sleeping out on the streets of San Francisco or whatever. At the time, I wasn't sleeping out on the streets of San Francisco, but I was hitchhiking all over the West and doing lots of backpacking, camping, sleeping on the side of the road in many places, in very strange places, staying with friends and working on farms and going to rainbow gatherings and festivals and sleeping on the beaches of Hawaii, working in Alaska for a little bit, etc. So this story takes place in spring of 1996, and I had just visited my mom, who lives here in U.S.A., and that is why I'm in the area right now. I am from the town of Willits, just about 15 miles north of here, getting some little glimpses of Lake Mendocino there. And so it was like April or May, I think, in 1996, and I decided to go on a backpacking trip on the Lost Coast. I'd done another backpacking trip there a year earlier in spring of 1995 in one section of it, and I decided I wanted to go to a different section of it. And so in order to understand the Lost Coast and the story in general, then you'll need to know the geography of the area. So the Lost Coast is called the Lost Coast because it is the only section of coastline along the entire west coast of the US that doesn't have a road along it. All up California, Oregon, Washington, you have a highway right along the ocean. Between the ocean and the coast range of mountains. But at the Lost Coast, then the range of mountains was too rugged, and so there's about 30 miles of coastline with no road along it. Highway 1, the Pacific Coast Highway, starts in Southern California, goes all the way up the coast, and then just north of here a little ways, which incidentally is the exact spot where a year or two ago, then that lesbian couple with the 4 kids drove their car off of a cliff into the ocean, and all of them died. And that was just like a few hundred meters from where the Highway 1 turns inland. I was there last spring I drove down and pulled into that pullout, and I saw a little memorial shrine there, and then saw pictures of them and realized that that was the spot right there where they had driven off the pullout over a cliff into the ocean. So a sad story there. But anyways, at that point, Highway 1 turns inland, and then it meets Highway 101 and goes inland a little ways, and then Highway 101 comes back to the coast. Highway 1 ends at Highway 101, and then Highway 101 is then the coast highway in that part of California, and then up into Oregon and Washington. And so if you want to go to the Lost Coast, then you can access it either from the southern end or the northern end, or from the east, about halfway up at the town of Garberville. Then you can drive along a road that snakes along, goes up and over the mountains, and then gets over to the coast. And from there, then you can start hiking along a sandy beach that goes miles and miles up the coast, and mostly you are hiking along the ocean there, right on the beach, and then sometimes it comes away and goes up on trails. And so it is quite a unique experience to do a hike for miles and miles along a beach, and then there are spots that you can camp and stay for the night. You can do that hike for 10 days or something. I've never done all the way to the top and then to the road at the north side there. But my plan for this time was to hike along the coast, along the beach, and then at one point then a trail goes from the coast up over the mountains, and then another trail comes down the range of mountains right there, along like a ridge or maybe in trees and stuff like that. I never found out, as you will see in the course of this video, but the idea was to do basically a loop. Go up the coast, hike up onto the top of the mountains, and then from there, come down through the mountains on a trail away from the ocean, and then get back to where I started. And the idea was for this to take about 2 weeks. And so I get all packed up, get all my food, rain gear, etc., and get out on the trail. The first day is brilliantly sunny. So I hike along the beach there and find a spot to camp for the night, stay there, and then I think the next day was kind of partly cloudy to the best of my recollection, but definitely the next day it started to rain. Now, part of my plan to be able to extend my food was I was going to fast for 2 days, not eat anything, just drink water, and that way then I could basically extend my trip another couple of days with the amount of food that I had. So I hear the Grateful Dead over there. That's random. I am actually a Grateful Dead fan, so this is pretty cool, but I'm just curious who's here. Okay, it's down in this valley. That's a trip. Oh, it's this boat. Funny. Man, they're blasting it. And they're fishing. And so this is where the road gets washed out, and so I'm going to take a trail up here. And so I think it was when it started to rain that I decided, okay, this is a good time to take my 2 days of fasting and stay in one spot and hope that the rain stops. So I pitched my tent and camped there for the next 2 days. Didn't eat anything, just water. And then 2 days later, it was still raining. And it was this just steady, not like hardcore, but just this steady rain coming down constantly, day and night. My tent, fortunately, was nice and waterproof, and so I stayed dry. And after 2 days, then I got started hiking again up the coast along the beach. Now, there was one critical gear problem with my setup, with my backpack, which is that I didn't have a waterproof backpack rain cover for my pack. The backpack was like water resistant, and so it was doing pretty good. But as you will see in a few minutes, then that ended up being a critical mistake on my part. And so anytime you're going backpacking, by the way, we got poison oak in here. So definitely staying on the trail. And then I will take a shower when I get back. That is kind of the solution, is take a shower, wash off any poison oak poison that got on you. And so anytime you go backpacking, no matter where it is, if it is in Death Valley in the summer and no clouds in sight, still bring a waterproof rain cover for your backpack. Of course, a rain jacket as well. That is just obvious, but make sure you have that waterproof pack cover. That is even more important than rain pants, because if your pants get wet, that's a pain, but it is not going to be like life-threatening. If all your stuff in your backpack gets wet, including your sleeping bag, then you are in a real bad situation if you are still out there in the wilderness. And so I continued my hike along the coast for several more days. And then I got to the point where the trail peeled away from the coast. I could have continued north from there, but my plan was to head up to the top of the ridge there, the range of coast mountains, and continue on back south. And so I started the hike up the trail there, and it was still raining. It had been raining nonstop basically for the past, at that point, like 6 days or so. And fortunately my stuff had stayed dry, but this day it was raining even harder, and it just kept coming down and coming down. And so I start hiking up this steep grade of this hill here, and it just goes and goes and goes. And so I just talked with those guys, asked them if they caught anything. He said they caught one fish and then lost it, but he said he did catch a buzz, so they're having fun at least. All right, we got Eastside Trail, Coelho Truck Road. I guess I'll stick to the trail here. And by the way, it is 96 degrees out here, 36 degrees Celsius. It is a hot one. Might have to take a swim in that lake after I finish this video and turn around and come back. And so I'm hiking up this mountain range, and the rain is just coming down and coming down, and it is a long hike up there. And after half a day, whatever, many hours, then I get to the point where there is a junction, and it is the trail heading south along the mountains. But a trail continues. Actually, it is like a jeep road. That's what I'd been hiking up all the way up there, was a like gravel jeep road. And so I get to the junction there and decide to take a break, have lunch, find a spot under a tree or whatever, and am thinking about this hike going from there south for another, 4 or 5 days or something of hiking, and how the rain has been persistent for just about a week now and no sign of it letting up. And I think at that point I was getting concerned about the stuff in my pack and that it might be getting genuinely wet that day. And I remember getting up from my spot without my pack on and just walking down the little trail a little ways, and then I got to this kind of viewpoint with a steep slope going down. Right then a big gust of wind just kind of hit me and like almost blew me backwards. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was just kind of a sign to me of maybe this isn't the best idea if I have another option. And I looked on the map that I had a map of the whole area showing the trail and everything. The jeep road that I was on kept going, and it actually connected up with a proper road. Not Highway 101, which was further away, but the road that goes to Honeydew from Highway 101. And so from there, I could get back to the main highway and then get back. I think I was going back to my mom's after that. And so I thought hard about it and decided I should probably get out of here. It's been a week of hiking, and that is a big unknown. Committing to that 5 or 6 day hike in the rain, and I was kind of feeling ready for a change. So I decided to keep on hiking up the Jeep road, which at that point was leveling out, I guess, and hope that I could get somewhere that night, or else sleep in my tent again somewhere along the way and just hope and pray that it would work out. And so I went for it, put my backpack on and kept on hiking. And it was many, many miles, but at least it was flat, slightly downhill, slightly uphill sometimes, but it was very easy hiking. And so I just kept hiking and kept hiking and kept hiking, and eventually got to the road. And at that point it was, I think, just barely starting to get dark, or starting to get less light. Not dark yet. But then I wasn't exactly sure which way to go on that road. There was no sign or anything. And so I basically took a educated guess. Maybe I had an indication on the map, possibly. And so I went left, thinking that that was the way towards Honeydew, which is, I don't know if it's even a town. It might just be like a tavern or a store or something. Not much. But that was the way to get back to Highway 101, at least I hoped. And so I kept on walking that way through the rain, still coming down. And it got dark and kept raining. And so there was almost no traffic. I hadn't seen a single vehicle, I think, for like an hour or two of walking further on the paved road there. But then a car came along and I put out my thumb and they stopped. It was a family, a woman driving and like 2 or 3 kids. And I asked them, are you going to Garberville maybe? That would be the best bet, is get there and then I'd maybe stay in a hotel. I don't know how much money I had at the time, but it wasn't very much, but at least get to town and know that I was safe. And they were only going a little ways down the road to their house. And so she said, I can't do anything for you, basically, and kept going. I kept hiking, and at one point decided I am utterly, thoroughly exhausted and soaking wet, and I'm ready to call it a night, eat some dried food, crawl into my tent, hope that my tent and sleeping bag are still dry, and just wait out the night and then keep on hitchhiking in the morning. Okay, we got a mostly flooded road here, and I don't really feel like getting my sandals all wet and muddy, so I think I'm going to turn around, head back this way. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna hike up the like field. It was like this kind of stuff, kind of field with trees here and there by the road. And here we go again. Something is out there. And so I decided to just hike off the road and find a spot to set up my tent and stay there for the night. And literally just as I was stepping off the road, then I heard another car coming. So I decided to stop and wait. This like Jeep or some kind of bigger rig comes along, and stick out my thumb. Just a single man there, and he stops. And I say, are you going to Garberville by any chance? And he says, well, no, I'm just going to my house a few miles down the road. And I say, oh, damn, that's too bad. I forget if I said I'm looking for a place to stay tonight or what. But he saw my condition, and then he said, well, I mean, if you want, you could stay at my place. I don't really have much going on there. It's just me, and I got a stove and a dog and my cabin. So if you want, you know, that's a possibility for you. And I was like getting into the car before he'd even finished his sentence. And a few miles later, turn off the road there, go down a long driveway, and get to his house. And it is a really cool, just like classic Northern California cabin, like probably built by him and some friends or something, similar to my dad's and mom's house that they built when I was a kid. All wooden construction and a wood stove, and it is nice and dry. He gets a fire going and suggests I can take my stuff out and dry it by the fire. And so I open up my backpack and start taking stuff out, and it is all just soaking wet. I get to my sleeping bag and pull it out, and it is literally dripping wet. I would have been so screwed trying to spend a night, like definite life-threatening situation. And so the boat just left, blasting more music there. And so I'm sure that I would have figured something else out if I tried to camp that night and discovered the wet sleeping bag. Probably would have put it, you know, back in my backpack and then just kept on hiking up the road and hope for another car, or, you know, who knows what. But anyways, it would have been a horrible situation to have been in if that guy hadn't stopped and really saved my butt there. And so spent the night there. He was really cool. Made dinner. He had satellite TV. Slept nice and warm. Got my stuff all dried out. And the next morning, then he gave me a ride, like just up to the road right there. And then I hitchhiked to Gabriel and got back down here to my mom's in U.S.A. And all was well. So everything worked out. And so I am about to jump in that water there. But in a couple of days, then I'm going to be leaving this area and going on a road trip. So maybe I'll get the chance to tell another travel story or two. But either way, more coming. It might be a bit of a break, though, after I leave here, because I'm not going to be posting videos regularly once I'm on this road trip. Probably going to be camping mostly. So anyways, I'll probably post a little like travel update before I take off. All right, see ya. And so right over there is where I was before. I just took a swim and was hiking back. And my last clip, actually the second to the last clip, the camera had stopped recording for some reason, and I missed part of the clip and then tried to re-record it. And I forgot to mention that later, after I got home, then I looked at another map and tried to figure out the distance that I had walked that day of hiking through the rain. And I figured out that from the place that I'd camped the previous night, left there in the morning, to the guy's house had been about 25 miles altogether. That's like close to 40 kilometers of hiking that day, up intense elevation in pouring down rain. So definitely the most intense hiking day of my life. Wow, half moon up there. Cool. So thanks for watching, and now time for a swim.